Got it. All right, we're going to call our October 18th, 2022 meeting to order. Madam City Clerk, roll call, please.
Here.
Member Stone.
Now we can hear you.
Councilmember Warren. Mayor Pro Tem DeForest.
Here.
Mayor Ingram.
I am present.
Let the record reflect that all members are present with the exception of Councilmember Stone and Councilmember Warren.
Before we go in the closed session, do we have anyone that'd like to speak or have comments?
Seeing none.
All right, great. Can you announce closed session items, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As listed on the agenda, the City Council will meet in closed session on one item. CS1, Conference with Legal Counsel, Anticipated Litigation, pursuant to Government Code Sections 54956.9 D2 and D3, Significant Exposure to Litigation, and that is in 2 cases. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Adjourn the closed session.
Whenever
God,
you're
it
ready,
got
Mr. Mayor.
awful quiet out there. Good grief. And all of a sudden you could hear a pin drop. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
How are you? Thank you for being patient with us. Sorry we're running a little bit behind. We were in closed session. All right, we're going to go ahead and call our meeting to order for October 18th, 2022. Announcements of closed session items. Madam City Attorney.
The City Council met in closed session on 2 items where there was significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Sections 54956.9 D2 and D3. The council was updated on both items. No reportable action. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Madam City Clerk, roll call, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember White.
Here.
Councilmember Stone.
Here.
Councilmember Warren.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem DeForest.
Here.
Mayor Ingram.
Present.
Let the record reflect that all members are present, and I'd also like to note that all members were present during closed session. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. Madam City Attorney, would you do the honor of leading us in the pledge, please?
Absolutely.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pastor. Good evening, sir.
So we bow our heads for the invocation. Our Father in heaven, Lord, we begin this meeting by calling on your great assistance and wisdom to see the best way forward, to see the difference between right and wrong as you have established it, to ask for your blessing upon our mayor, upon our councilwomen, upon our city staff, and our police officers and our firefighters, as well as the citizens of this beautiful community. And Father, we ask a special plea. We know that no city can truly prosper when it is not, there is not enough rain to support it. And so we pray that in your merciful grace, you would send us all the rain that we need through this year so that our city can flourish. We pray these things in the name of Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you.
Please be seated. Okay, certificates of recognition. Madam City Clerk.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is regarding the 2022 International Mixed Martial Arts Federation World Tournament. And my understanding is you will be presenting to Stephanie Hernandez and the students who will be present here to accept. If you can please come on up.
Okay, Stephanie, is she in the audience? Yep. Okay, great.
Okay, go on. You can go
come
up.
on down. All right, let's explain what we're acknowledging these children for.
Okay.
Why they're so special.
So let me give you a little background about what my husband and I do. I'm with Hernandez Kickboxing Fitness. My name is Stephanie. My husband's name is Richard. We teach kickboxing to the youth in the community, ages 4 and up. Our youth pancration team is youth MMA for better terms. So ages 8 to 17 do youth pancration. They compete all across the country as well as internationally. So they go and they compete. They go, let's see here. They compete and then they end up going to nationals. Nationals is where they can qualify to go to worlds. So this year, Worlds was in Abu Dhabi. We had several kids that went and competed. So we have Lariah Gill, raise your hand. We have Isabella Campos. Udiel Cruz. Sakiel Cruz. And Ethan Barrett are here today. So when you go to nationals, you have to place in first or second in order to be able to go to worlds. And then when you qualify, you are basically Team USA. So they went to Abu Dhabi to compete against 42 countries. And the US actually came in second out of 42 countries. And might I say, they only lost by 5 points to Ukraine, so it wasn't by very much. So that's in a nutshell what they do. So youth pancration, no headshots, no knees, no elbows. Everything else goes. Multiple kids do multiple sports as well as our kickboxing. They do wrestling, they do judo, they do jujitsu. Am I missing any? No, I think that's all the ones they do. So they do multiple sports. It's mixed martial arts.
Can we talk about the order in which they were awarded or what they achieved?
Yes. Okay, so Lariah Gill, she went last year to Worlds, and she was the 2021 IMMAF World Champion. Last year was in Sofia, Bulgaria. This year she went to Abu Dhabi and she defended her title and was triumphant, and she is now a 2-time world champion. Isabella Campos, this was her first time going to Worlds, and it was her first world championship. We have Udiel Cruz. So he unfortunately did not place this year, but I have to say he had some of the most exciting fights. And if you look in the news, there was a recent article about the kids going to Abu Dhabi, and his picture doing an armbar against his opponent was on the headline. So very exciting. We have Sakiel Cruz. He placed 3rd in our Worlds this year. And we have Ethan Barrett. Ethan Barrett actually placed 3rd in our nationals this year, but he was not able to make it to Abu Dhabi. But this next year, they're all going again.
Can my colleagues join me down here? I've got 5 of these. Each one of you can present one. Our chief of police is going to give you something real quick, and he'll explain the significance of these. And what we do is they actually sold these to benefit women with breast cancer and survivors. So go ahead, chief.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's my honor to give you guys the first ever in 30 years Murrieta Police Department Pink Patch. We're doing a Pink Patch project this year to raise money for Michelle's Place. And as you see, Corporal Jones in the back is wearing the patch, and so am I. So it's my honor to give each one of you guys one of these patches, and very impressive. Matter of fact, be very careful as I walk by you, all right?
And so, and I have an extra one for Richard. And so, when you think about fighting, remember the people that are wearing this patch support people that are fighting for their lives. We're very proud of you. So, this is from Melody and I for each one of you. It's a small gift to help you with your next trip. That can be, you want to pass that out to all of them when you have a chance. And I don't know, it takes so much discipline to do what they do. I spent years competitive wrestling, boxing, fighting, and the toll that it takes as you get older is pretty substantial. But to achieve what these young people have achieved, when you talk about world champions, and you talk about people that go to another country to compete, coming from our small community of 116,000, it's huge. It just goes to show what this community cultivates, which is young men and women like this.
Thank you. It is my honor to present a Certificate of Recognition Award to Isabella Campos.
It is my honor to present the Certificate of Recognition to Uriel Cruz.
It is my honor to present the Certificate of Recognition from the City of Murrieta to Lariah Gill.
And last but not least, it's my honor and privilege to give this Certificate of Recognition to Ethan Barrett.
Cruz, your certificate, get out there, buddy. Well done. There you go. You guys keep it up. We expect you to bring gold medals back, silver. Right. We're going to hold you to that. And one day, hopefully, we'll see you up here fighting for the people of the city of Murrieta. Come on, let's take some pictures.
Well, why don't you stand next to the mayor? Yeah. Great. We should do it with the parents.
That's a good idea. Who said that? All right, let's get the parents up here. Come on. All right, Cassie, grab the extra cameras and take some pictures for the parents. You gotta make
Congratulations, parents.
Thank you.
I got it. Lay them all out. Some come down on this side. I'm all about the photo op. This is the memory books. That was fun.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have the proclamation for National Friends of Libraries Week, and Library Manager Melvin Rosellas will be presenting the proclamation to the Murrieta Friends of the Library.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council members, members of the public, and city staff. My name is Melvin Rosellas. I am the library manager for the Murrieta Public Library. This week is the National Friends of the Library Week, and it is a week to honor and highlight the amazing contributions the Friends of the Library have done for us at the library for the past 26 years. So the Friends formed in 1996, and they were instrumental in bringing a public library to Murrieta in 1999, and over their 26 years, they have raised over $1.1 million for the library. And they do this with 2 bookstores, one that's operating in the Los Alamos Center and then also at the library here. And every book, I feel, turns into a smiling face and an opportunity for a child to learn the love of literacy and lifelong learning. So with the support of the Friends and a state bond, our current building facility, the library, was built in 2007. And there was always an intent to expand into the Carol Carson Garden of Verses off to the side of the library. And so I would also like to take this opportunity to announce that in March of this year, we applied for a grant called the Building Forward Grant from the California State Library for funds of $1.5 million to expand our children's area and build an additional storytime room. And it is my pleasure and honor to announce that we have received that grant just today. We have received it. So we're really excited to take our library to the next level and the next chapter with the support of the Friends, right? They have supported us through these past 26 years, and we're excited to continue to move into the future and bring the love of lifelong learning and literacy to the next generations and the generations to come here in Murrieta. So when you get a chance, please visit their bookstores, buy a book, donate some books, volunteer, become a member. Please support the Friends of the Library because they do such amazing work, and we could not provide the high level of programming and services without their support. So now I'd like to read the proclamation. Oh, are you gonna read it? Oh, yeah, absolutely.
What an honor this is. City of Murrieta Proclamation, National Friends of Libraries Week, Friends of Murrieta Library. Whereas, since the founding of the Friends of the Murrieta Library, Friends in 1996, the Friends have been dedicated to supporting the library by fundraising, promoting the library, and volunteering in the library, in the community, and in Friends projects. And whereas, the work of the Friends highlights an ongoing basis the fact that our library is cornerstone of the community, providing opportunities for all to engage in the joy of lifelong learning and connect with the thoughts and ideas of others from ages past to the present. And whereas Friends operate 2 used bookstores in Murrieta, the Town Square Bookstore attached to the Murrieta Public Library, and the Corner Bookstore is on the east side of Murrieta. And whereas the Friends understand the critical importance of well-funded libraries and advocate to ensure that our library gets the resources it needs to provide a wide variety of services to all ages, including access to print and electronic materials, along with expert assistance in research, readers, adversary, and children's services. And whereas the Friends raised over $1,100,000 to support the library that enables our library to move from good to great, providing the resources for additional programming, much needed equipment, support for children's summer reading, and special events throughout the year. And whereas the Friends' gift of their time and commitment to the library sets an example for all and how volunteerism leads to positive civic engagement and the betterment of our community. Now there be it resolved that our mayor, Jonathan Ingram, on behalf of the Murrieta City Council, hereby proclaims October 16th to the 22nd, 2022 as Friends of Libraries Week in the city of Murrieta, California, commending them for their dedication and commitment to our library. Congratulations.
She sounded like a librarian, huh? I know, I couldn't have picked a better person, right?
Whereas,
I know. And she has that librarian's voice.
as president of Friends of the Murrieta Library, I would like to thank the City Council of Murrieta, and I also want to recognize all of our board members and myself as president. We volunteer, and that's what this whole thing is about. It's a wonderful group of people who not only provide the money for the programs that we have, we also provide programs ourselves in the library once every other month. Programs such as to support the local authors and artists, et cetera. And next month, we're actually having a program about recycling. There's a whole new thing coming out about that. So that will be our hot topic next month. But we do recognize the volunteers, number one, and we do recognize and appreciate the support of the City of Murrieta and its wonderful council. And as Murrieta grows, so do we hope we will too. Thank you.
Let's go. Let's get some photos. Would my colleagues like to come down and join us? I'm sorry? Okay. She wants to get us over here where the seal is at.
Congratulations on that grant. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. You want to come on this side of the mirror?
We're so excited.
Everybody say library.
I think she's lying.
We have one more to go. Okay, a very important one. All right, Madam City Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is a proclamation on Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Katie Gilbertson, with the Regional Manager of the Riverside District Attorney's Office, is here to accept the proclamation. You can come on up.
Lori's, Councilmember Stone? Yeah, certainly, I'll come down with you.
Okay, can you hear me? The City of Murrieta proclamation for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Whereas domestic violence affects the lives of many in Riverside County, and its impact is felt not only by the victims, but their children, families, communities. And whereas too many people suffer abuse at the hands of their partners, and domestic violence victims can be of any age, race, religion, economic status, and whereas domestic violence is not a private family matter, but a crime, the consequences of which reach devastating effects on communities, schools, workplaces, and our nation. And whereas domestic violence is more than an occasional family dispute. It is also known as an intimate partner violence, where all the behaviors are perpetrated by someone who is, was, or wishes to be involved in an intimate or dating relationship and are aimed at establishing power and control by one partner over another. And whereas public awareness and education about domestic violence are needed, as well as collaborative efforts on the part of government, health professionals, law enforcement, religious organization, educators, community associations to address domestic violence prevention, intervention, treatment of victims, and whereas the City of Murrieta, in partnership with Safe Family Justice Center of Riverside County, seeks to provide protection, prevention services to keep families safe from violence, abuse through collaborative community-based comprehension centers. And whereas the City of Murrieta takes care and consideration of its residents seriously and wishes to ensure attention is paid to these victims. Now, therefore, be it be resolved that I, Mayor Jonathan Ingram, on behalf of the City of Murrieta Council, hereby recognize the month of October 2022 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in the City of Murrieta.
I just wanted to take a moment on behalf of the officers of the Murrieta Police Department. Obviously, this is what we do, right? This is what we signed up to do and what we live for, to be victim advocates and protect survivors. But there is no partner in this valley that we have like Safe Family Justice Center. Katie and Marshall are so important in that fight, right? Every day they are right next to us. And I just I'm just honored to be here and appreciate everything you do for all the domestic violence victims. Victims of sexual assault. I can't tell you all the services that they offer, but it's rightfully so that we give you this resolution today. Honored to be here.
Thank you all for having us with you all this year for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I just want to share, domestic violence is an issue that a lot of people don't want in their community, which is reasonable. That's not something that we want to see. But we all have someone in our family that we care deeply about, that if they found themselves in a violent relationship or in a relationship that's unsafe, you would want them to be taken care of. And so we have had the privilege of providing that service for our community here for the last 24 years. And I can't tell you how proud I am to have such amazing staff and supporters here in the room, all of you. Most of you I see very often at our events, and I appreciate your support. We work so hard to make sure that survivors don't lose everything that they have. And one of the things that I'd like to share with you is this year alone, the Riverside County District Attorney's Office has filed 10 cases involving intimate partner-related homicide. The most recent one that was filed was a case out of Banning that occurred with a young woman who lost her life and the life of her child. And so when you think about whether or not intimate partner violence is happening here in the community, it most certainly is. And so when survivors need help, we want to be able to provide a safe and confidential place that's going to help reduce as many barriers for people as possible. And that is why we have such strong relationships with law enforcement in our city to help us make that stuff happen quickly for survivors. They could lose everything. Everything is on the line for them if they don't have what they need. So I just want to thank you for all of your support this year and for taking the journey with us to talk about a very difficult topic. I know it's not something that everybody cares to talk about, but we appreciate you so much, and we're here to serve our community. Thank you.
So I think everybody can understand when we just describe violence, what an individual goes through when you see domestic violence. And a lot of times what we don't understand is, especially if it's mutual combatants that are fighting with each other, their children get engaged and the children wind up getting involved, and it impacts them and it impacts people at a lot of different levels. So this organization works hard. The reason I asked Councilmember Stone to read this proclamation is because she was involved with fundraising over the years, different parts of this organization, and I try to make sure that I'm picking a person that had some skin into the game or understands what's going on with the situation. And I think that's something that she understood very well. How long did how long was Jeff a representative and involved with SAFE over the years? 15 years. And you? Right. So a long time. And so it's an honor to be here and give a proclamation to an organization like this that we know that's reaching out and helping. And for those that have daughters, granddaughters, nieces in their family, as well as nieces, nephews, and sons, this is something important that we need to have an acute awareness of, because it happens every day. And we can't exempt ourselves. Even if it doesn't happen in our community, it can certainly be brought to our community. And the chief knows that by what transpired a couple months ago here in the parking lot. So, and that happens all over our country. So these organizations are imperative, and we need to make sure that we're supporting them. So thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for everything SAFE does. We appreciate you, and Councilmember Stone for reading this. Photos? Yes. Let's do it. Come on, Chief. Come on, guys. Come on down. You got to be in the photo.
I'm going to go this way.
Also, thank you so much for wearing your purple today. You look so wonderful, all of you.
They told me this wasn't purple.
Yeah.
Lavender.
Lavender is purple.
Oh my God, it's purple, right, guys? See, all the guys agree.
I didn't say that.
Thanks for coming out. You did a great job. Nice to see you. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Chief. Okay. All right. Madam City Clerk, we're ready to roll here. Has everyone read the agenda? Any questions?
Seeing none?
Okay. Then we're looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion passes unanimously, 5-0.
Okay. Department Commission announcements, Madam City Manager. Administrative update.
I have nothing this evening, Mayor.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to go ahead and start with Councilmember White.
I have nothing to report from my committees at this meeting, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember White. Councilmember Stone.
I have nothing to report out for WRCOG. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Warren.
Yes, in September the 22nd and September the 28th, I serve on the subcommittee for the amphitheater, and I attended 2 meetings in regards to that. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Mayor Pro Tem.
I have nothing to report tonight for RCTC and RCHCA. Thank you.
Okay, and I have nothing to report from any of my committees. Okay. Public comments, Madam City Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now is the time for public comment. Any person may address the governing bodies on any subject pertaining to city business. Normally, no action may be considered or taken by the governing bodies on any matter not listed on the agenda. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. So, Mr. Mayor, first up, if I can please have Jonah Palencia and Ethan Hopper, who will be speaking together but with a combined time of 3 minutes.
Good evening. Do we start just whenever? Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mrs. Mayor Pro Tem, and the other distinguished members of the City Council. Today we bring to you a very pressing issue, and to effectively communicate the gravity of the situation, we have an anecdotal story from one of your longtime residents. Mr. Hopper?
Thank you, Mr. Palencia. So, our good friend, Mrs. Susan Macedo, told us the following story. She said that she and her sister would, on the regular, go to the pickleball courts to take part in a hobby that they immensely enjoyed. at around 7:30 in the morning. But then one day they went to the courts and discovered they had all been taken already. Thus, she and her pickleball partner pushed their games back to 6:30 until one day she saw, to her abject horror, completely filled courts and people waiting in line already. People would eventually show up at 5:45 in the morning, and up to 16 players could find themselves vying for the scarce positions on the court by the still early time of 6:15. For this reason, we propose the creation of additional courts.
Yes, and if we will take a look at our whiteboard here, our graph, we see that this line is made to represent the number of residents in Murrieta who regularly enjoy the game of pickleball, and this is to represent the number of total available spots on the court across the entire city. Now, as we can see here, this number is much higher than this number, so there are two possible solutions. Either we can decrease the amount of people who play and cap that off. However, that would not be consistent with Murrieta's hope that its residents will have a sustainable exercise and healthy daily lives. So we are proposing that this number were to go up. Now, this is, however, not to come off as ungrateful for the courts that have already been provided. However, due to the success of previous decision to include these courts, it can only be assumed that it would be a good idea to provide more in order to bolster this already fantastic decision. Mr. Hopper?
In conclusion, we'd like to say that since the desire for pickleball courts is clearly outpacing, right, the demand is clearly outpacing the supply, we would like to suggest that the city of Murrieta create additional courts. So thank you for your time.
You can have a conversation. I don't see Mr. Ambrose floating there. Oh, there he is, Mr. Ambrose. Please, if you would. That was better known as a double punt, Bob. I'm sorry. Well done, Brian. Gentlemen, follow Mr. Ambrose. That was fantastic. Thank you. Go on out. He's going to talk to you and see what we can do to help facilitate that.
Are you all together in the Pickleball Pro group? We are.
Gentlemen, that was great. I wish we had more people come up like that. That's really good.
So well spoken.
Yes, absolutely. All right, next speaker, Madam City Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have NAREP representatives. I have Clara A., Maria Arellano, and Cindy Sacio. They will each get 3 minutes, but they'd like to present together.
Better known as CMC, right? Hi, Clara. Hi, Maria. Hi, Cindy. Nice to have you guys here.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Okay. Well, good evening, Mayor Ingram, City Council members, and staff. My name is Clara Asimakopoulos, and I am a real estate broker and government affairs director for the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals, known as NAREP. I am here tonight with my city council, with my members, Maria Arellano and Cindy Salceo, and our Vice President, Junior Gomez. We will be speaking on the NAREP mission, and with that, after I speak with the mission, then we're going to talk about the history of Dia de los Muertos. So anyway, the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals is the largest Latino business organization in the country with a network of over 50,000 professionals and 100 chapters. In California alone, we have 30 chapters. We are a mission-driven organization advocating for the policies that impact increasing home ownership, opportunities for the workforce in the U.S., along with fighting for fair and equitable immigration policies, which revolves around immigration reform. We champion national and local policies to increase housing production. At the local level, that means tackling zoning and land use reform. Our organization wholeheartedly believes that home ownership is the #1 strategy toward closing the wealth gap. And with that, I do have a video to talk about Dia de los Muertos.
Mami, yo sé que te va a gustar. Despacito, mami, yo sé que te va a encantar. Despacito, mami, yo sé que te va a gustar. Despacito, mami, yo sé que te va a encantar. Despacito, mami, yo sé que te va a gustar. Despacito, mami, yo sé que te va a encantar. Despacito, mami, yo sé que te va a gustar. Suavecito, vamos a bailar.
Okay, with that, I pass it on to Maria.
Thank you, Clara. Thank you, everybody. What you just saw was a past year's event that we held to celebrate Dia de los Muertos. We always incorporate something, an educational component to the festivities. So it involves, teaching people about the cultural aspect, and then we also educate real estate practitioners on the industry so that we can pass it on to our clients. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history of Los Muertos if you don't already know. Dia de los Muertos in Spanish means Day of the Dead. The history behind the celebration is generally referred to as Dia de los Inocentes, Day of the Innocent. It is a Mexican holiday traditionally celebrated on November 1st and 2nd, although other days such as October the 31st or November 6th have been included. It's not the same as Halloween. Dia de los Muertos originated in Mexico and Central America. It's a celebration of life, not death. The Aztec, Maya, and Toltec had specific times when they commemorate their loved ones. After the arrival of the Spanish, the ritual of commemorating their dead was intertwined with two Spanish holidays, All Saints' Day, November 1st, All Souls' Day, November 2nd. Dia de los Muertos is often celebrated on November 1st as a day to remember children who have passed away, and on November 2nd to honor the adults who have passed. Ancient Mesoamerica believed that death was part of the journey of life rather than the ending. They believe that new life comes from death. This cycle is often associated with the cyclical nature of agriculture, whereby crops grow from the ground where the last crop lies buried. The ofrenda, or the altar, is a central component. This temporary altar is a way for families to honor their loved ones and provide them with what they need on their journey. They place pictures of the deceased along with items that belong to them and objects that serve as a reminder of their lives. The ofrenda also includes 4 elements: water, wind, earth, and fire, and not the band. Flowers, butterflies, and skulls are typically used as symbols.
So I invite you to join us October 27th, next Thursday, from 5 to 9:30 p.m. The location is Bailey's in Old Town Temecula. We'll be having Andrea Shoup from Shoup Legal teach us about our personal and family trust. We look forward to having you join us again October 27th at Bailey's in Old Town Temecula. We will be having, of course, food, music, education, and folklorical dancing. We look forward to seeing you all there. You can find us at our NAREP Temecula Valley Facebook, and you can get the tickets and join us. We look forward to having you all. Thank you.
Well, we look forward to you bringing the event to Murrieta.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
was thinking about that. That was gonna
Yeah, yes, certainly.
we could do that.
Thank you for your educational and informative presentation. Is there a greeting or a salutation that you give to someone who is celebrating the event, the holiday?
Not really, no.
Okay,
No, just.
thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you, ladies.
Appreciate it.
Have a nice evening.
All righty.
Madam City Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have Faye Wands. I also have Whitey Wands, but due to reasonable accommodation, Faye would like to speak on his behalf as well. Is that all right, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, absolutely it is. I think Mr. Wants, sorry about your niece, sir. Faye, you can't come down unless you're smiling. There we go. It's a prerequisite.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Faye Wands, and I'm a 24-year resident of Murrieta. I'm here tonight to encourage the citizens of Murrieta to vote for Cindy Warren and Ron Holliday for the city council. And here are my reasons. Cindy was appointed to the council when our last mayor resigned. During this year, she has proved to be a quick study, does her homework, makes good decisions, and was chosen as Citizen of the Year and gets involved with all the city and its activities. Pretty good for a newbie. She is endorsed by fellow council members Lisa DeForest, Lori Stone, and Mayor John Ingram. Some of the other endorsements are Derek Huss of the Murrieta Police Officers Association, Joe Bork of the Firefighters Association, retired Senator Jeff Stone, Senator Melissa Melendez, Assemblyman Kelly Serrato, Riverside District Attorney Mike Hestron. Not too shabby of a list of people who think she's the best person for the job. Ron also has an impressive list of endorsements. Riverside Sheriff Chad Bianco, Assemblyman Kelly Serrato, District Attorney Mike Hestron, Wildemar Council members Dustin Nigg and Ashley DeFilippo, Police Officers Association, Firefighters Association, Randon Lane, Lisa DeForest, Cindy Warren, Alan Long, and the list just goes on and on. Ron is a strong Christian with integrity and character. He has a background as a financial advisor, which would be helpful when balancing the budget and the city retirement plans. And he has deep roots as his family has been here for several generations. I spoke at the council meeting a few months back about Christy White's attitude towards the newer council members. Her condescending attitude, not mentoring them, thinking that by being on the council longer, she knew everything. She causes unrest on the dais because of her attitude, and I find it interesting that not one of the council members endorsed her, maybe because she doesn't play well with others. Then changing my little thing here, I noticed that going down up the 215 on the west side of the street, there is a very shredded American flag on a hill. It's between Clinton Keith and Scott Road, about where the crosses are over there. And I brought tonight a new flag. If somebody will volunteer to go up there and change it, I can't climb up that hill. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, point of order, please.
Yes.
Ms. Wands made a statement that I have endorsed Cindy Warren, and I, as an elected official, I do political campaign management for a living. and I am a vendor for her campaign, and therefore it is a conflict of interest for me to endorse her. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Next speaker, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Howard Amdahl.
Make it quick, Howard.
Howard Amdahl, a local real estate developer. I can see Ivan's a little nervous over there. He's wondering what I'm going to bring up. I'm actually here to commend the city, and in particular the police department. Through the years of my development, I've had a lot of property stolen, different types of theft, and I've always, filed police reports, and then that's the end of it. I never see another.
Just for clarification, that theft was in Temecula, right? Not in Murrieta.
I'm sorry.
Thank
I
you.
apologize. I am so sorry. Murrieta. So through the years, after you file the police report, you don't hear another word. I've never, over the 3 or 4 dozen reports, I've never had anybody call me back. I went about a month ago, I moved a trailer onto my property 3 months ago, right over here off of Adams, and had some scaffolding on it. It's an old trailer. And one day I showed up and it was gone. And I thought, well, they're not going to get very far because I had a bad tire on it. And, time goes by and I can't find it, so I go down and file a police report right here at the station. And they bring me in and they sit me down and they said, well, so, how big was the trailer? And I told them, well, what was the license plate number? Oh, I don't know. I haven't seen the plate in years. He said, well, what's the registration number? Well, I don't have my registration on me. I said, well, what's your name? From my name, they pulled up the registration. It was a 2007 Carson trailer. Gave me the license plate, gave me the registration number, gave me a bunch of paperwork. And I thought, well, that was really clever. I never thought they could do that. Well, 2 weeks go by, and I get a text message with the picture of my trailer on it. And they'd found it online. Someone was trying to sell it. And I said, yeah, that's my trailer. And they said, well, we're working on it. We think we know who took it. Time goes by, and I don't hear much, and, I forget about it. And I get a call from Officer James Tompkin, and he says, Howard, I think we found your trailer. And I said, wow, really? Where was it? He said, well, it's in San Marcos. Well, someone had tried to register it, and that guy, they said, no, it's a stolen vehicle. And they went down and picked it up, brought it. He said, where do you want me to, I asked him, where do you want me to go pick it up? And he said, no, I'll bring it to you. He had it hooked up to his truck, pulls it up right to my job site, right where it was stolen from. Here, the poor guy that had bought it, stolen property, had painted it, put a new tire on it, had a new jack on the front of it, had new wiring, new lights. Well, that was a good deal. But I couldn't believe the police department. That was, all the years, I've never had a police department do that. I just want to say thank you to the Murrieta Police Department and all the fine work they're doing.
Thank you, Mr. Amdahl. And Chief, you might note the message there is you guys are a lot smarter than you look, because I think that's what he was saying, right? That he wasn't expecting that you could sneak out there and find their trailer. Great job. That's why we're very proud of our police department, Howard. We're blessed to have them. And make sure you lock that thing down and pay your registration and licensing fee, would you? Next speaker, Madam City Clerk.
Francisco Urbina.
Mr. Urbina, good evening. How are you, sir?
Good evening, Mayor Ingram, members of the City Council. I'm happy to report that problem, 3-story, 4,600 square foot house at the end of Capera Court, 26540 Capera Court, there was this afternoon around 1:15 a large trash bin delivered. However, the two neighbors on each side of the house got tired of looking at all that trash and whatever, and it was attracting undesirable vermin. They took matters into their own hands rather than wait for the code enforcement process to go through, and they cleaned up a lot of the trash. In the future, I don't know if code enforcement is sort of has one hand tied behind their back by any state law, but I was told by Lori in code enforcement that they could not go in there until the process, was, I guess, properly vetted, and they met with the property owner who lives in Millbrae, which I think is up in the Bay Area. Unless they got a court order. Well, me and some of the neighbors feel like code enforcement should have gotten a court order. Anyway, I want to compliment the 3 individuals that gave an excellent PowerPoint presentation video on Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, or for Catholics in the United States, we refer to it as All Souls Day. That is my birthday. And I also bank at Wells Fargo, so I expect the VIP treatment. I'll be showing up in Old Town Temecula. And as far as, I'm glad that the Murrieta Police Department helped recover the trailer for the gentleman that spoke before me. I don't know if it'll work, but I would suggest that, purchasing those lower cost Apple transponders that you can put in a suitcase in case it gets lost, and can be trackable, but I don't know if it'll work for cars or trailers, whatever. Short of that other system they call LoJack or whatever that police departments can track it. I also, other neighbors could not be here tonight because this is an inconvenient time. Either they're not home from their long commute to San Diego or Anaheim, or they're cooking dinner for themselves and their children. But we would like Mr. Brian Adams to give directive to Leah Kolick to get an engineer's report done to see what the cost of constructing and maintaining restrooms at Vintage Reserve Park would be. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Urbina. City Attorney Israel, whether you want to or speak with Mr. Urbina in person, I'd like somebody to kind of update him on due process and why there's the time that we have to put in before we can enter a property and trespass. If you could do that, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Urbina. Okay. Any other speakers at this time in the queue, Madam City Clerk?
Seeing none.
All right, we're going to move to consent calendar. Any items that were pulled from the consent calendar or request to speak on items?
I have a request to speak on item number 8.
Okay. Okay.
And
David here. All right, so meanwhile, no other items. That's just item number 8, correct? So we're going to go take items 1 through 7. We're pulling 8. Looking for a motion. Let's start any questions from my colleagues.
it's 1 through 11, Mr. Mayor.
Or 1 through
sorry.
11, excuse me. I'm sorry.
Mayor Pro Tem.
You guys are all bailing out of here? You're getting bored? Absolutely. Yeah. Go home, Mr. Marshall.
Mr. Mayor, motion carries unanimously, 5-0, with the exception of item number 8.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk.
You're
Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and discuss the poll item.
Okay. Mr. Chataratsu.
Good evening, Mr. Chantaransu. Nice to see you again. Long time no see.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. So
With item number 8, this is a request to amend our contract with Tyler Technologies, which is currently updating our land management system. So just, briefly, that is, permit software that the building department, planning department, engineering, fire will be using to issue permits. So it's a technology upgrade from our current system, GoPartner, which is about 15 years old now. So the city entered into a contract with Tyler Technologies back in 2018. And so the item before you is a request to add additional licenses for the city to be able to purchase. We've added staff since 2018. And so being able to provide all of our staff members involved in the development process would greatly assist the Development Services Department and the Engineering Department, Fire Department to provide very quick customer service. So that concludes my brief report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, anybody public comments on the item?
I apologize. It might have been item number 9, but we're trying to find out because it was hard to read the writing. So thank you for that wonderful presentation, Mr. Chandrabasu.
Well, at least it wasn't me this time.
This was my error. I apologize, and it was my eyes. I must not have had my glasses on, but we're trying to find out from the person who just walked out if he wanted 8 or 9. The speaker has left, Mr. Mayor. So,
All right, thank you, David. We're going to go ahead and move along. No?
Who wants to speak on 9? Oh.
You're back, Mr. Urbina?
Yes, I was speaking to Dia de los Muertos organizer.
Okay, so hold on here.
Yes,
I've already...
thank you. Mr. Urbina, is this for item number 8 or 9?
I believe it was 9.
Okay. So this is on the short...
Short-term vacation rentals?
Okay.
No, that's number 9 then?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Urbina. We just discussed item number 8. That's what happens when you use the engineer's handwriting. So we're cutting your minutes for that.
Okay. I would like this item continued for 30 days, but I know that, you started work on it, several months ago, and I had 3 deaths in the family this year. But my neighbors and I, we have a problem, 4,600 square foot, 3-story house on the corner of Buxton Court and Winterset Court, just to the west of Capera Court. There's always all these doggone cars parked in the driveway, sometimes in tandem and on the street, and sometimes they park on the curb face, so someone making a right turn, it's hard to maneuver. But the other items or things, I don't know how much the state regulates this, but I don't think we should be cutting them any slack for as far as reduced fines for any offense. These people are making money. Second, I and some of my neighbors don't think that it should be an administrative approval. If I read the proposed ordinance correctly, you're leaving it up to the applicant after his application has been approved by the city manager to contact surrounding property owners within 300 feet. To me, that's sort of like the horse has gone out of the barn and now you're trying to rein the horse in. I personally think that it should be a city council approval so that we have more input from five brains, so to speak, I think are better than one. No offense to the city manager, but there are just too many doggone violations, and can anyone tell me how many violations of unpermitted short-term vacation rentals have been identified within the city of Murrieta.
Continue talking, please. You don't get to ask the council questions. This is public comment. There won't be a back and forth.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, well, you're probably going to go ahead and approve it because it's the second reading and you've done a lot of work on it. But me and my neighbors were not in agreement with the ordinance as proposed, and we think there should be a 30-day continuance, whatever. But if I did have questions, would I go to Mr. David Chatarango or Chataransu?
I would probably direct you to Mr. Haller at that point and speak with Mr. Haller, and he could direct you where you needed to go. If that's okay, Mr. Haller. Thank you, sir.
All right. Well, those are my comments on the item. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Urbina.
Members
Have
of
a
the
nice
City Council.
evening. Next speaker, Madam City Clerk.
Chad Theisel.
Good evening, Mr. Faisal. How are you, sir?
Hello. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm here to, I guess, report a concern on the short-term Airbnb rentals. I've been a resident of Murrieta 20 years. We live right down the street down here. Recently, a neighbor purchased a home. It's being run as an Airbnb daily. There's nightly parties till 1:30 in the morning. Cars in and out. It's noisy. We've complained, we've told her this, mentioned these things, and I understand there's an ordinance in place for these type of things. I feel the fines are not substantial enough, that it's just cost of business being run. It makes our family feel unsafe. There's strangers daily, every night. We're talking Tuesday night, Wednesday nights, parties in the morning, cars blocking our driveway, and there's just, we've gone the process of reporting these issues, and we just want to put that out there that I don't think the fines are substantial enough. I think it's a cost of business and we're just being brushed to the side. It's not safe. On the safety issue, it's kind of a random story I had. These Airbnb websites, they book, there's no screen on who comes through. Earlier in the year, my credit card was stolen. Airbnb was purchased. When I called Airbnb and said, how is this vacation rental on my name and my credit card, but I'm not there? They wouldn't give me the information of who was renting in a rental under my name. That just means anybody can rent and live next door to me day after day after day when this is our home and where we live on a quiet little cul-de-sac with little children. It's uncomfortable, and we shouldn't have to police our neighbor and constantly report and call in on her. I feel if there was proper ordinances, that they got the permits, I get that, that's great, but we're in a housing tract right down the street. I get if it was bigger, great, or maybe just on the weekends, but parties running Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and everybody that comes, they're on vacation. So it's us having to go next door and call in on people that are drinking till 1 in the morning, that makes me feel uncomfortable. Having to go to the neighbor and complain, it just puts us in a really bad situation, and this is where we live. That's it. I'm just trying to give my story on what's actually happening and what else we need to do. But we've filed and we were following those lines. I think if the penalties or the fines were substantial enough, possibly they could do a better job, meaning the landlord, of how to get people in and out, or just less of it. But in a housing tract, it's tough. We literally look out our window and people party all night. And there's even been some rare times where, this is all over the last 30 days, people come at 2 or 3 in the morning and then they leave at 5:30 in the morning. And they're not sleeping, the lights are on all night. So that's not a vacation rental, that's a party. And that's where we're at. So I appreciate your time.
With this and what we do, what the process is, so that he has the opportunity this evening at least to connect with somebody from staff more and more.
Okay.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, certainly.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
because of my error, would you mind if I do by roll call vote a motion?
On item number 8?
Actually, I'm
or
asking
9?
for, I would like to do consent 1 through 11 with the exception of 9, and then a separate vote for item 9.
Certainly, go ahead.
Can I get a motion and a second for consent calendar 1 through 11 with the exception of 9?
So moved. Second.
Please vote.
Oppose? Just messing with you.
Electronic or roll call?
No,
It's
it has to be
electronic
roll
roll
call
call.
vote.
Okay.
Raise your hand. Those in favor? 5-0. Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Item number 9, can I get a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor, please raise your hand. 5-0. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We ready to move on
Waiting
to
for you whenever you're ready.
Okay, we're ready for the public hearing.
All right, so item number 12.
Yes. Financing for Monamos Terrace Apartments Workforce Housing Project.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council members. I'm Carl Steele, Senior Planner with Development Services. And here with us tonight from the California Municipal Finance Authority is Travis Cooper, Financial Analyst. We're here this evening to conduct a public hearing for the financing for the Monamos Terrace Apartments. Here's the project site for reference on Los Alamos at Monroe near I-15 south of Murrieta Mesa High School. The city's Development Services Department approved a project on the site in March of 2022 with 139 workforce housing units allowed on the site. And this is in our transit-oriented development area and is also a housing element site for this type of housing. This is the site plan showing the approved development with full improvements around the property. You can see there's lots of landscaping. And here are the project elevations that we've approved, showing the general 3-story project design to give you an idea of what it looks like. The project grading and building plans are currently in process with our Public Works and Building staff. So the project applicant submitted an application to finance the project with the California Municipal Finance Authority. The CMFA is a joint powers authority that has formed with over 300 municipalities in California. They assist local governments, nonprofit organizations, and businesses with the issuance of both taxable and tax-exempt bonds that are aimed at improving the standard of living in California. The project tonight is proposed to use the Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act, TEFRA, which is part of the federal IRS code, as the method of tax-exempt financing. Community Development Partners, the applicant, has asked the CMFA to provide $50 million in bond financing to the project. The debt to be issued by the CMFA will be the sole responsibility of the borrower, and the city will have no financial or legal obligations or responsibilities with regard to the repayment of the debt. All financing documents carry disclaimers that the loan is not an obligation of the city. The city will also bear no cost at issuance of the proposed debt. The borrower is responsible for repayment pursuant to the agreement. Pursuant to TEFRA, this requires that a public hearing be held by the governing body of the jurisdiction where the project is located for the tax-exempt financing, which is why we're here tonight. And that governing body approved the proposed financing for CMFA pursuant to the Joint Powers Agreement. So with that, it's recommended that the City Council conduct the public hearing under TEFRA pursuant to the IRS code and adopt a resolution approving, authorizing, and directing the execution of the JPA and approving the issuance of exempt facility bonds by the CMFA. Such adoption is solely for the purposes of satisfying the requirements of TEFRA, the IRS code, and the California Government Code. And this completes my presentation. I'd like to thank Travis Cooper from CMFA for being here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. At this time, before bringing it back to the council, at this time, would anyone like to recuse themselves or abstain from this at this time?
Seeing none.
All right, there we go. All right. All right, bring it back to the dais. Councilmember White.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. I just had one question, and it's all right if we don't have the answer to it, but under the project analysis and the characteristics for those able to apply for the workforce or the affordable housing, the unit characteristics were incomes with families earning $49,300 to $70,400. Are there other conditions such as they're not able to own real estate or other assets? Do you know, other than the qualifying income, anything about the other characteristics?
Councilmember White, the applicant is here and can answer that regarding the operations. They'll be able to answer that question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember White. So, and then you can, when they get up here, maybe you can elaborate on that when we open the hearing, actually, when he comes up to speak, if that works for you, okay? But did you have any other questions now?
No. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Stone.
I don't have any questions at this time. Thank you for your presentation.
Councilmember Warren.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no questions at this time. It was a nice presentation. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
My only question is, there's no legal obligation to the city for doing the tax exemption, is that correct?
That's correct. We have no legal or financial obligations related to this. We're just the local hearing body that's required to hold this hearing pursuant to federal law.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right. I have no questions at this time. So we're going to go ahead and, are there any questions from the public or anybody in the queue at this time, Madam City Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you open the public hearing, the applicant
Yep.
would like to come speak at this time.
But there's no one else that's come up or given you anything since we got to this portion, right? Okay, thank you. That's all I want to make sure. All right, we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing at this time, and we'll take public testimony, starting with the applicant.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council member and staff. Thank you for the opportunity to have this hearing. I represent ATOP Corporation, and we partner with community partners and Pacific Housing. That's our joint venture that developed this property. We really appreciate this opportunity to be able to build this project and develop it. I wanted to share that when we start looking at the opportunity here, the key is working with partners. So, you know, when we contact, when I looked at the opportunities, I reached out to the city and, went through the list, and, it depends on how, I get response, because I call a lot of cities. So with this particular city, when I explain what we're trying to do and build affordable housing, and it's really important that we have partners in these deals. So I want to illustrate that this has been, about a year and a half ago when I start reaching out. And I want to acknowledge that staff to this day been very supportive of these projects. And I think also to the foresight of the council member to really look at affordable housing and look at where you can build this project. And that makes it easy for applicants, developer like ourselves to bring affordable housing to the city. So with that, I think partnership is so critical in building affordable housing. So without city being supportive, it's not going to get done. It's very difficult to build these projects. I've been involved in projects where it takes, personally, I think it's 6 years, one project where I went through from, starting with the project through entitlement, through starting construction, and I've heard project with 10 years. So this is a very good process where we're embarking on right now, and it's very enlightening to have a city and a community really supporting these type of project. And to acknowledge staff, Carl is the person I reached out from the beginning. And also Jared, they work very hard on these projects. So I want to thank you very much for the city and staff for helping. And, it takes a village to build these projects. So our partners, the city, the county, the state, everybody's getting involved to finance and fund these projects. And at the end of the day, we're building this project for the community. So to your question, my understanding when we look at these property and leasing out these, it's tenants that needs to be able to afford based on their income. So my understanding, and I'll find out more, is as long as you qualify for income, you get to qualify and live in these projects. And we go through a very rigorous screening, make sure your background checks are qualified. So thank you again. Appreciate very much for the.
It gave me some clarification, but I was wondering if income is the only characteristic that is required that be met.
Yes, I believe so. Income is the only one. I can double check as far as the qualification if you have asset. That is something that I need to find out. But my understanding is income is the one they first look at that you qualify.
Well, and I think senior access too, I think you're kind of leaving that out because on that component you would have, I can see the heads going yes in
Yeah.
the background.
Right.
And that's, so there is senior access there. And
Additionally.
yes, additionally, correct.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you for that clarification.
So, and that's one of the problems that I have when you say affordable housing. I think it's the worst thing that you can actually do because this impacts our arena numbers, if I'm correct, gentlemen, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And I call it workforce housing, always have.
Right.
It's entry-level housing, and it's housing for people that are above the age of 60, 65 that can't afford to pay $2,700 a month for an apartment.
Right.
So when development makes a comment that says, well, this is low income or fixed income housing, it doesn't sound good. And I think the reality is that we need to have housing for our seniors and the people that work in our communities.
Sure,
So,
definitely. Yeah, I mean, this is targeting those populations.
no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Lori? I'm sorry, Councilmember Stowe.
Yes, sir.
Any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Warren?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, sir. No questions at this time. Thank you very much.
Okay, any other comments at this time?
Seeing none, Mr. Mayor.
None? So gentlemen, again, this does help and impact our arena numbers, correct?
Yeah, if you pull the presentation back up, Mayor, I do have the.
We'll just take your word for it if you're saying it does, because that's the key.
Yeah, this hits the, here we go. If we go, there you go. If you remember, we had this slide when we talked about the Adams project in
Right.
June. So this targets that low income category and that we have that 583 unit requirement this cycle. So we'd be knocking out 139 of those with this project.
Awesome. Thank you, gentlemen. That's great. We appreciate it. So no more comments from council members. Our discussion is ended. So we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing at this point and entertain a motion. And that would be moved to approve staff recommendation. And there's the motion if you want to take it, Lori, or Councilmember Stowe. Cindy, did you move it? Okay, thank you. All right,
We just need the mayor's vote. There we go.
I'm trying.
Motion carries unanimously, 5-0.
Thank you very much. All right, government body announcements. Try and make it lickety split.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
we have item number 13.
Did I shoot past 13?
Lucky
I'm
number
trying-
13,
Yep,
Mr. Mayor.
Yep, I knew I was too lucky.
Okay. This is
Right.
the update on the implementation of the short-term vacation
goodness,
rental
that one.
ordinance.
All right, you guys, be gentle. Let's move along. Item number 13.
All right. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. My name is Chris Tracy. I'm a senior planner here with our Advanced Planning Division for those folks out in the audience. Also joining us today is Nolan Barentis with our Code Enforcement Division. Today we'll be providing an update on the short-term vacation rental program. Just to provide a real brief overview, first, this is the timeline of the original ordinance. It was adopted back on October 12, 2020. We had a second reading October 20th of 2020. More recently, 6 months ago, March 15th, 2022, we had a one-year update. The direction from the City Council at the time was to bring back some minor updates, which I'll just cover briefly, and for staff to have an update 6 months into the future. 2 weeks ago, on October 4th, the council conducted a first reading of ordinance number 58222. And this made some modifications to some of the operational and fine updates. This included removing the electronic key prohibition, provided for enhanced short-term vacation rental fines. There was also updates with the transfer of a short-term vacation rental permit, the short-term vacation rental and business license appeal process update, and also neighbor notification. Removal of the electronic key was recommended in order to improve the safety for the guest and for the owners. Second, the proposed fine structure provides the maximum allowed under state law, consistent with Senate Bill 60, and also there's a required hardship waiver component, which is part of that. And lastly, when you have a transfer of a short-term vacation rental permit, it will go back into a citywide pool, and once the maximum number of permits are reached, any remaining number will be on a first-come, first-served basis, and there'll be a waiting list for any remaining ones. Just real briefly, as brought forward by Finance back in May, there was an update to update the business license appeal hearing process, and this added an administrative hearing officer as part of that, and that covers short-term vacation rental permits as well as other business license applications. This person's a neutral third-party reviewer, and these provisions became effective in July. So early in the permitting process, staff received some feedback on the notification portion. It was suggested at the March 15th meeting that certified mail be part of that process. Staff has rolled that out as an option among other options for applicants. And also with the new permit software, EnterGov, we'll also be able to provide some address information as well. Currently, some of our numbers here, we have 72 identified in our system, 32 are active permits. We have 10 locations under additional review at the moment. Back in March, we had 60 identified and 26 permitted. So there's some gain in that implementation of the program. On here is just an overview of our code enforcement metrics as provided by code enforcement. Real quick, the application fees for a permit application is $349 for a non-hosted and $200 for a hosted. The city's working on an overall fee schedule update, and this would include the STVR application fees for future city council consideration, and this is tentatively planned for early 2023. Lastly, I'll just cover some of the costs and revenues of the program from March 1st to September 1st. So a 6-month period with respect to revenue received, received a little over $37,000 in TOT from March up until current time, $2,149 in application fees, $709 in fines, $600 in business license fees, for a total of $41,118.05 in revenue received for the past 6 months. The hard cost for the software was originally $18,632 for the first year. Staff was able to get this down to $16,623 after the second year. Moving forward, we were able to reduce this further. We're looking at $11,709, $32 on a yearly basis, so we'll be saving $7,000 a year approximately on the software side. The other costs for enforcement and processing are noted on the screen here. The program at the moment is revenue positive by $23,148.17 for the prior 6 months. Closing, staff recommends the following action. Receive the presentation by staff regarding the update on implementation of the short-term vacation rental ordinance number 56120, and staff with planning and code enforcement is available to answer any questions. Thank you.
We're going to bring it back up to the council, but just for the council's edification, this is a receive and file. There is no motion requested on this item. Is that correct, Madam City Clerk?
That's correct. It's a non-actionable item.
Okay. Let's go ahead and start with Councilmember Warren.
Thank you. Could we go back? Thank you for the presentation, by the way. It was very well done. But could we go back to the slide where it talks about, one more back, I think? No? I'm looking for the slide that shows how many permits have been, okay. So we have a current number of permits, 72 are identified, 32 are permitted. Why is there, if you know there's 72, what's the lag between the 32 and the 72? Why are they not all permitted?
Not all of them have the address data extracted from the system as one item. Some folks are new, they are just finding out about the program, and they get notified by code enforcement. We use the software to provide notification letters. Hey, come talk to planning staff, find out if your location is consistent for the zone for that type of rental type. And Nolan's here; he can speak a little bit more to that too.
Yeah, in addition to the software program and code enforcement's enforcement actions, there's a two-layer approach that the software program sends out to keep them in the loop of what they need to do and how they need to submit their applications to the city. So that's part of that number.
But these are complaint driven though. So what about the ones where we don't have software involved, where you have somebody that's calling in, that's filing a complaint, where it's complaint driven?
Those are actually a separate number, I think, on the other slide. It shows that there were 18 direct reports to us that were separate from the what was identified by the software program.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Warren, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's fine. I just had one more follow-up question. How much time do you give a homeowner to apply for their permit and go through the process? How much time are they allowed to have to fulfill this requirement?
That process can depend on how quickly they respond to us. It could be anywhere from 5 to 10 days to 2 or 3 weeks. The notifications go out pretty consistently within 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, so we don't have a time limit then. 30 days, you have 30 days to file your paperwork for you to get your permit, correct?
So
we try and do it quicker than that.
Okay.
Councilmember Warren, hold on. Madam City Attorney, you might want to elaborate on that, because I'm a little concerned when we're making those comments about due process and what happens when somebody's made aware versus going through the process, and what our policy says with respect to it.
So we're talking about when someone's caught operating.
Caught, or there's a complaint filed, and generally the turnaround time is a week to 2 weeks on that for the sake of argument.
Well, I don't think that's our question.
No, that's not what I was asking. I'm just, if somebody wants to file for a permit, how much time are we allowed to, how much time does it take for them to get the permit? That's what I'm asking. I'm just asking that time frame.
So originally, we had the people that we had established that were in business. So unless somebody falls out of that queue and it goes back into a lottery system, that's not even the consideration. This is the enforcement mechanism, basically, of the policy.
I was talking about somebody that was that was coming in, that's what I was asking. So if they're coming in as a new STR, how much time do they have to get that permit?
So they have to first apply for a business license permit, and then they'll get a 5-digit business license number, and then they go online and they'll apply for a short-term vacation rental permit. It usually takes about a week to 2 weeks. There's usually, information that's missing initially, and we'll follow up with that, but we're very, diligent on walking through that with that person.
I just was curious for the timeline, that's all. Thank you.
So what was the cap that we had established originally?
300 overall.
300 overall. And so those 300, have we identified those 300 as of date so that we know who is in the queue or who's there? So
the maximum number hasn't been reached. We're right now I checked today, it's about 75 overall.
Okay, I'm just making sure that it's not 75 that we've approved, that there's that room. So there is room for that additional amount, that approximate 125 to 123, correct?
That's correct. There's plenty of room for additional.
There you go. All right. Thank you, Councilmember Warren. Councilmember Stone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What concerns me was the speaker that we heard that lives in a subdivision, and the partying that's going on until 2 o'clock in the morning, people arriving at 2 o'clock in the morning, leaving at 5 o'clock in the morning. I would not be happy if that was my neighbor. And so I'm just curious, as far as code enforcement going out. I mean, when we get calls at 2 o'clock in the morning, what is the procedure with that?
So the calls at 2 o'clock in the morning would be routed to the police department. So if somebody calls on the 24/7 hotline, then that information is going to be routed to them because they're available at that time. We will follow up with that as soon as we can on the next business day, and when that information is also routed to me as part of that, and then I disseminate the information, and then we get in touch with the person reporting to determine what was going on and if there was any action taken by the police department.
And for my recollection, In a subdivision, is this a true statement that it has to be hosted?
That's correct. It has to be a hosted type of application. That means there needs to be a person that resides at that residence as their primary residence during the nighttime hours. They can be gone during the daytime, but they need to be there at nighttime.
So, because that's a really good question, but I dovetail into it is what happens if it's not hosted, they're not complying, and somebody has reported it, or it's found that, because that's going to be complaint driven. It's not like software can figure out whether it's hosted or not. So what's the policy on that, and how do you enforce it?
So at that point in time, if the police department responded and identified that it was a non-hosted location, there was parties, we would gather all that information and we would take an appropriate enforcement action based on what the information that was gathered there.
I'd like to see an update on the calls that go to our police department. I know you're not prepared tonight, Chief, but I think that's very important for council to understand those complaints that are driven. So we have a clear understanding of what is happening in our community. You know, we are a community about quality of life, and in being that the city of Murrieta has agreed to do this, we want to make sure that we are being very respectful, especially in subdivisions, to the neighboring homes that are there. And that's really my concern. That concludes my comments, Mr. Mayor.
I'd just like to piggyback on Councilmember Stone. I'd also like to see that report, or I concur with you, and would like to see, you know, whether even that address that the speaker spoke of earlier has been reported. Is that is that a current pending issue? So,
and also, Mayor Pro Tem, it's also my understanding that when you are STVR, that don't you have to let the neighbors know? And so isn't there information on that paperwork that they could be calling in on as well?
Yes.
And I'm not sure that this gentleman is aware of that. I don't know if he received that paperwork.
It goes to everyone within 300 feet of the property. When they first establish a permit, it has the designated contact person that's responsible and their phone number. Also, I should add, they're supposed to have a little sign visible from their front yard area with a 24-hour contact number, as well as the city's hotline. The notification letter also has the hotline as well, if I'm remembering correctly, and all the other details about the rental itself, the occupancy, and those types of things.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember White.
Thank you. Just to amplify on Councilmember Warren's question, once an application is submitted, is it a time-bound constraint for the city to respond? That it would close out in 30 days or 60 days, I think was a little bit of the nature of Councilmember Warren's question too.
With planning applications, there's a 30-day review for completeness. That person's not supposed to be operating when their application's under review until they're deemed either denied or approved.
What happens if they do? It's a fair question.
I was just gonna, I was gonna come back. Yeah, no, thank you.
So we work together with the planning department when that happens. We will reach out to them and advise them to remove their listings is what we're doing. We've been very successful in that, and the response we've had has been very successful when that happens, when they're in that process.
And just to clarify, if someone applied and you didn't hear from them back in 30 days, or 45 or 60, 90, is there an end period where you would then send them a letter saying, you initiated your application and we followed up with you 3 times and we're gonna close out our records? Or does it hang in memoriam for a stretch of time?
We haven't had that situation yet where they just have been non-responsive after applying, because there is a cost to apply for the business license as well as the application initially. So, but we would follow up. There's a 30-day review period for completeness for a planning application. So that would be the window.
Great. And then I missed, so if you could clarify, what was the certified mail, use of certified mail for?
So that would be for the initial notice that would go out to everyone within 300 feet when they're first applying for the permit and establishing that permit. It would have the contact information for that operator, the phone number, number of bedrooms, that sort of information.
Everyone within 300 feet, perfect.
Correct.
And then lastly, under the enforcement metrics, you write in your informative report, for the period covering March 1st, 2022 to September 1, 2022, enforcement activity increased substantially compared to the 6 months prior before March 2022. Do you have an idea as to why? I can speculate, but I was curious as to what the substantial or significant increase was reflective of.
You know, there are times when we get more calls about things. I don't have a specific reason as to what the increase was. We just received a lot more direct reports.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's more awareness of the program perhaps, and that as the public and the community is increasingly aware of it, it just was the natural percolation of it?
Yeah, I think that's the key. You know, word gets out. There's the hotline number. Our website also, you just do a Google search, it comes up, you know, at the top, you know, results. So
Also, Councilmember White, it was the summertime, and so for short-term vacation rentals,
Yes.
that's a more intensive period.
Yes, we were waiting for the summertime
yeah,
period to see what that
I think
looked
that
like.
has a little bit of an attribute to that.
So and thank you, those are kind of what I was speculating. If it was something of more consequence, you would flag that and you would note that. You would capture that if it was something other than summertime use or just awareness of the program.
And I think what we're noticing as we've come out of COVID, if you will, there's this, you know, venturing, tourism. I think people are starting to get back out there, and that might be also another attribute to that.
True. Okay, I just wanted to understand what the substantial increase was about, so thank you. Thank you for your report.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, before I toss it off to you, I just had one question for the city attorney. Back to the question on due process once it's turned in, because there's a couple things where I think that we need to, for lack of a better term, kind of sew the hole shut on this, which is if there is noncompliance and somebody's been called in and they're asked to either obtain their permit and go through the process and they don't, and we have peripheral enforcement efforts that need to go in. One, can we collect those fees? Two, what is the due process on this to establish that?
Well, there are fines, so it depends on the route that the council takes. If they want to do administrative citation fines, if they want to do criminal prosecution for violating our code, and or seek to revoke a permit.
I think ultimately what we're looking for is to make sure that we have compliance. So the question now becomes, do we have those fees in place? Because the administrative fees are automatic, but when you have to go out and do a code enforcement or verify or physically be on site or obtain because PD has to go down there to find out that it was a party or something was involved, how is that fee recollected and how do you implement that?
Sorry.
I got one, didn't I?
Well, with the ordinance that was on the consent item tonight, we're under the maximum fine structure allowed by state law, so that's going to be a substantial increase over what has been in the past. There's a $1,500 fine for the first violation after the initial admin $100.
Now, that's for somebody that already has an existing permitted
It could be any, I
structure?
believe it, maybe the city attorney could speak to this, but I believe it would be anyone in violation of the ordinance, potentially.
So that was my question, is it a muni violation of a muni code, or is it something specific to an Airbnb and or weekend rental? Does it make sense?
A violation of the city's codes for Airbnb, short-term rentals.
Okay. All right, Mayor Pro Tem, sorry.
No, I just, thank you for the great report, and kudos to my fellow colleagues for amazing questions. I've been checking them off as we're going. I just have a question, and pardon my ignorance, but a 300-foot radius, how many houses around like a normal 7,200 square foot tract home? Can you help me with my brain
Yeah.
to wrap around that?
It's about 20 to 30 homes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's a wonderful number. I was hoping it was going to be up there. And also, is it going to the actual address or is it going to the owner for the certified letter? Is it certified? So for example, a renter is living next to does it go to the address or is it going?
It goes to the property owner.
Property owner. Okay,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yep.
Thank you. And I just want to say kudos to staff that have been working on this. I know this isn't hard or this is very hard. And it was started by my predecessors on council. And a lot of work was put into this. And I think that I feel very fortunate that I didn't have the long hours of working on this as well, that this was ironed out very well. Thank you. And it's nice to see that our expenses are also covered. So that is huge because the first report that I received being on council, we were in the negative. So congratulations to all of you for getting it into the positive. That makes me very happy. And everybody asked all my other questions. So thank you so much. Mr. Mayor, back to you.
Thank you. With respect to Councilmember Stone's request, I guess I'm asking colleagues, we have consensus to bring that back in the future?
Yes.
Madam City Manager?
Mayor, we can do that, or we can just provide the information to you in a memo to the council.
Which would you prefer, ladies?
A memo to the council will be fine with me.
Okay.
That works.
Does that work for you,
Council
Councilmember Stone? Okay, so having that, then the next question is with complaint driven, once the complaint's been filed, and again, I guess it comes down to due process, they have up to 30 days, if I've heard this correctly. If they don't respond in 30 days, then what's the process, Madam City Attorney?
It would be the typical code enforcement notice process.
So the entire process could take up to 90 days then?
I mean, it depends if they give extensions. I mean,
Well, if you have 30 and then you go into the compliance phase, that's generally 45. I've set in on a few of these. And so roughly we can figure 90 days, which is 3 months before we can really take an action. Is that correct?
what type of action?
We've had on code violations, if this is considered a code violation, we're going through the due process.
But so you're saying switching to criminal?
I'm not even talking switching to criminal. I'm just talking get through the process, get them to acknowledge. If we got 45 days that's built in, once they acknowledge and do it, we got the 45 days, but we got 30 days from the time that we send it out to them or make contact with them for them to respond back for due process.
Is that how long you give them?
No, I don't think that it's requirement that we give 30, 60, 90 days for this. We're able to issue a notice and give them a time frame to follow up. That could
And what
be,
is that
could be
timeframe?
2 weeks, it could be 10 days. It depends on the nature of the condition.
So again, what is it though? So when it's established in the policy? So I'm asking, it's just a simple question. If you send it out, do they have 30 days to respond or do they have 5 days to respond?
It actually depends on the nature of the condition.
Some are shorter and some are longer depending on the violation.
And how quickly
Understand,
it can be
but
cured?
Again, when somebody looks and goes in there and they challenge us on the policy, where do they find that information? If it's a policy.
I don't, Mayor, if I may jump in, I don't believe that that's something that's called out because really with every code enforcement, case that we have, they're all a little bit different. I think maybe we're not understanding your question.
Well, the question again is, I know that if I cite somebody or if I've been cited, that I'm allotted X amount of days to respond, where I've sat in on this before with properties in our community. And they say, okay, we send it out, they acknowledge that they've got it. If they don't acknowledge, we send out the next notice. Generally, that takes about 30 days when that second notice goes out. Now, if they respond back, they get to start corrective action. So I know when I'm going through the process where I'm at and where my rights are. And my concern is I just don't want somebody coming back and challenging us in the future and us not having it clear going, we sent this to you, you acknowledged, here's the amount of time you have to get through the process. So is that established? Because that was something we discussed a year ago.
I don't believe that there's a specific time frame that was established in the code, so it gave us some freedom to have some flexibility in the timeframes that we established, depending on the nature of the condition.
So would it be realistic to kind of just establish that and go, okay, this is what we have for this situation, A, B, and C, so, and we'll still maintain that latitude so that we go, no, you've now escalated to this step?
Yeah, I think we could definitely consider that. I think we would want to be cautious about something where we establish, say, 30 days for something that might be something that needs to be fixed within 2 to 5 days or 7 days or something like that.
Well, that's why I kept asking, is it a noise issue where it's going, no, you're impacting us because now you're breaking the law, it's a noise issue versus a non-compliance issue.
Well, but that's
Two
also
different
in the
things.
city's code, so it's also a violation. So it's something that, if it's something like they left out their trash cans or they're not maintaining the property, you might say this needs to be remedied in a week or we're sending you, a further citation. But if it's something larger that, if they added on a structure that needs to be demoed, then they have to get permits. So you would say you have 30 days to get permits. And so that's why he's saying you have to look at what the violation is to figure out what time to give them. But it's clearly written on the notice, so the person receiving it knows.
All right, very good, thank you. Any other questions, guys? So, receive and file. Thank you, Madam City Clerk.
Thank you, staff.
Thank you to the staff. Appreciate it, guys. Okey dokey. There's no 13 and a half, right?
No, 13 and a half. We're moving on.
Okay. All right, governing body announcements. Councilmember White.
I will defer till our next meeting, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Stone.
Mr. Mayor, I will defer as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Warren.
I'm not going to defer. Sorry. If you could put up my slide, please. It's short and sweet. I had the pleasure of attending the neighborhood healthcare fundraiser, which helps women get healthcare in our community. I also had the honor of attending the 10th Joan Sparkman Unity Award for Professional Women's Roundtable, along with my co-councilwoman Stone. And I'd like to publicly congratulate Raven Hilden from Milvet receiving that Joan Sparkman Unity Award this year. I had the honor of attending the Knowles Women's Society Luncheon and the City Murrieta Coffee with the City, where I was presently late, but I had a reason. So there was an accident. So I get a little waiver on that one. Also, I wanted to say that last Saturday, the Golf Knolls held an emergency fair preparedness. It was well attended. It was also their open house and 50th anniversary celebration. Mayor Ingram was there along with our fire chief and a representative from the police department. Excellent presentations along with the Red Cross. And it was an honor to be there to represent the city. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Okay. You're on deck, Mayor Pro Tem.
I will defer as well.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, so for the sake of brevity, I'll defer as well, but just two footnotes here. The Walk for Life, thank you, Councilmember Stone, and for attending, also for the ribbon event. Very emotional because it impacts me personally. It touches me because of breast cancer in my family. Staff did a fantastic job on that. Thank you, Dominique, for being there. The Murrieta Rod Run, the Drifters knocked it out of the park. $63,000 for Oak Grove. So they deserve a big round of applause. Every year, the cars just keep getting better, and it's amazing to see. And it was pretty darn hot out, and downtown was actually thumping. Our police department did a fantastic job. Thank you, Chief. Our fire department there, response for a couple of heat instances. You guys did an amazing job as usual, and thank you for always being there to protect our community. It's greatly appreciated. On that, we are adjourned.
Woohoo.